on this computer. Good. So thank you for joining this session. This Cell Structure Design Info Hour. It's probably the 10th event like this or so. And it's the last time I want to do it like this. We will change the format a bit. So it's a good opportunity, good occasion to record it. The idea of this format is, you might wonder, is this marketing? It also is marketing, but the idea is really to give information about this approach. Cell structure design is quite new. Well, it was only created in 2019, so it's fairly new still, right? And so you might wonder, what is it about? Where does it come from? Is this really serious? Is this so great? 2009 created it. So 4 years ago or so, right? So you might have many questions, and we created this format to, address these questions. Partially, I will just talk a little bit, give you an introduction, maybe half an hour. Yeah. So that will be the very boring part, and then the less boring part is that you can ask questions and get them answered. Yeah. So the idea is to make this interactive, but this is not a workshop, not a seminar. You don't get credit points. Oh my God! If somebody leaves right now, that would be terrible. Yeah. So the idea is really to give you a little bit of information about the concept, the approach, and then to answer your question. Very simple, like 50-50. It might take 1 hour, maybe less. Yeah. But as long as you have questions, I will be happy to answer them. All right. So let me start first with a new section, that is what's new in cell structure design. Yeah, so I give you just a few in, and then I go into the history where it comes from, what it is. Okay, what's new in cell structure design? There's a new white paper. It was published in last month, in August, at the beginning of August, I think I published it. It is called Cell Structure Design Patterns. So you can look that up. It's a new white paper about patterns of cell structure design that we figured out over the course of the last 15 years overall, and especially since the publication of the concept as a social technology. So there's this new white paper, and we also did a video about this paper or this research. It's called it's part of the series that we call Beta Codex Live. So on YouTube you can look it up, Beta Codex Live, Cell Structure Design, and you will find this video on cell structure design patterns where we discuss the findings of the white paper in a 40-minute conversation. What else is new? We will offer an online qualification finally starting in November. The foundation will be three days of online session in total, but it will be like 6 half-day sessions online. So we will offer this qualification. If that's of interest to you, that's wonderful. What else is new? Yeah, I'm working on the book, Cell Structure Design book, in English finally. In German, it was published in. Yeah, it's taken very slow. I know. I'm very slow, but in German it has been out. Maybe Daniel, are you German? Okay, so
and I got it in German, but I would like to have it also for my colleagues overseas in English.
Yes,
would be great.
Yes. So I've been struggling with doing this translation work. It has been terrible. And I did other stuff with Comenius, our company. So this was delayed in English, but it's half done. And I'm now tackling it full speed. And there will be a second edition of the book in German with a different cover, several editions. So we will have a new edition in German soon and the translation in English. Yes. But for now, you can only have the poster. There's a concept overview poster. And there's a work poster as well, where you can do the design work on a poster. So you can get these things from the Red 42 shop. What else is new? Qualification, the book comes later this year, the video. And I'm working on yet another research paper right now. So I will publish another white paper on cell structure design patterns, but I'm still on it. It's only also everything is half ready on my side. Is that for you as well? Is your life as well like this? Terrible. Everything is half ready. Nothing is really done. Yeah, ever. Okay, so this was the news. Okay, let's go down in history. Let's go a little bit dig into the past, present, and future of cell structure design. That's just to illustrate you what it is. Okay, so here, oh no, this is another page. On our website, there is this page on cell structure design that I want to show you. And yeah, this one. Do you see it? Daniel, do you see it? self-structure design, the page on self-structure. So this is from our website. The page, you can also get there by typing in self-structuredesign.com. You get to the same page. And so this explains a little bit of what we will be talking about today. The most important thing that I want to show to you right now is this, the open source license. Yeah, so this is essential to self-structure design. It is open source. It is an open source social technology, as it says here too. And there's a concept overview. And I want to briefly go into these concepts. So what is a social technology? A social technology is first and foremost a technology that's not haptic, like my phone or a computer, or a key. A key is also a technology, right? I have a couple of keys here. So it's not a social technology. A hospital is a social technology, a school, democracy, a republic. Books, in a way, are a social technology as well, or writing, yeah? Those are social technologies. Also in organization, a company is a social technology. A meeting is a social technology. All these things are social technologies. So we are surrounded by social technologies. Now, self-structure design is a social technology, especially to design organizations, right? To structure organizations, to organize power and decision-making and value creation, well, mainly value creation in this case, yeah? So this particular social technology, as you can see here, was created in 2019, and we put this concept overview here that says the main things about this tool. It is an open source social technology created by Red 42. There is the open source license is referenced here below, lower here in these lines at the bottom, yeah? So what we say here is you can use, in this license, we say you can use self-structure design free of, anybody can use it. Anybody can publish about it, do it, use it in their work, use it in their organizations, create a business around it, you know, create additional stuff, but you have to respect this license that says, here's the detailed terms, you can tweak, you can commercialize, no problem, but you have to reference to the source, which is this page. You have to name the authors of the concept, and you have to keep your derivative creations open source. Very simple. Yeah, very, very simple. So this can be used by anybody. You don't have to do qualifications with us or certifications. You can, but you don't have to. Yeah. Everybody's free to work with this, and nobody has to ask us for permission. Yeah. Open source is like free speech, not like free beer. Not sure if you have ever, when I read this for the first time, I really had to laugh. Open source means it's like free speech. Everybody can use it, have it, should have it, yes? But it's not like free beer. You don't get everything for free necessarily that's related to it. That's why I don't have to give this book away for free, which would be impossible. I would be bankrupt in a month, right? So the book can be sold, courses can be sold, qualifications can be sold, and you can do the same, of course. We sell the posters, yes? Not everything related to open source stuff needs to be free, but it needs to be free to use, which is a little distinction that's important to understand. All right. So this is not like whatever, SAFE or something that you have to get accredited by a company that earns shitloads of money with this. I mean, I want to earn shitloads of money, but not through slavery, you know, intellectual slavery. So the idea is with open source, we make these approaches free to use, so that everybody can create and improve and innovate with it. We need much more innovation in our sphere. That is why self-structure design is open source, and also relative targets. Not sure if you heard about that. That's like, if they are like self-structure design and relative targets, they are like brother and sister, little siblings. Yeah, they are like two sides of the same coin. If you want to create a great organization, a beta organization, a decentralized organization, a democratic organization, those are two concepts that you should apply: self-structure design and relative targets. And there's a separate open source license, a separate info hour as well about relative targets. You can look that up separately. All right. So what's a social technology? I went into that. What is the character of self-structure design? I went into that now. The concept overview here, I would like to at least briefly explain why we created this thingy here, this page, which we also, again, also offer as a poster if you like it. So you can put it on the wall. Because there is the handbook in German, it will be soon becoming in English and so on. But the concept overview has the purpose of, like an open source software, this is the code. Yeah? This is the code. Yeah? So this is the minimum or the densest possible description of what self-structure design is. We have 12 principles here of the Beta Codex. It's the underlying other social technology that went into self-structure design. Then self-structure design has its own set of 12 principles. Yeah. And these, let's say, these principles are more detailed than the above principles, right? These are, let's say, rougher, more macro, and these are more micro. And here in these principles, you can see the scope of self-structure design. It goes from the sphere of activity, the boundary of the organization, why that matters, until how 12th principle here is periphery cells cooperate and help each other, can make agreements with each other. So it's about from how to define the boundary, or a little bit about the boundary of a self-structure design organization until to the point where we talk about collaboration between cells in a cell structure. Yeah. So all these principles matter. Here's the thing about this. This set of principles is indivisible. We say you cannot take any of these principles out, otherwise it stops making sense. For example, take number 11 out, transparency. Numbers of the organization and of the cells are public, visible, and available fast. If you take that out, the whole concept collapses in a way. You cannot have run a cell structure without having transparency of the numbers. Yeah. So we say all this is cell structure design, all this together, not one principle that you understand or you like, or another is excluded because you dislike it. No, the whole thing is cell structure design together with this whole thing. All right. So this is the idea. It's more like a philosophy. It's not like a rule. These are not rules. It's a coherent philosophy. And then there is another part here on the concept overview that are recommendations. So this is not as binding, right? We call it recommendations. You can accept it, you can follow it or obey it if you like, but you don't have to. Yeah. We think you should. That's why we put it here, right? We recommend it. We might call it, this is highly recommended. Yeah. So we believe all these 8 recommendations have weight. They matter. Yeah. How to make this happen and so on. And this design here, this is to characterize, again, this is the densest possible way to describe self-structure design, we think. This describes what is the sphere of activity, that's the boundary here, let's say, the skin of the peach. We are distinguishing here between center, periphery, and market. We talk a little bit about the relationships between cells. Yeah? So this, as a whole, is the concept overview. This is the philosophy of self-structure design in one page. Yeah. If you have questions, you can ask right away. We are just 4 people here in this call. So if you have a question and I want to know this about this concept overview or what you just said, fire away. All good? So this is the concept overview. I talked about what does it mean that it's a social technology? What does it mean that it's open source? Why is there this concept overview and what does it mean? Yeah, that is the essence of self-structure design. By the way, we might modify the concept overview at some point, but I think we did only one modification so far. In the year 2019, when we created it, we did a revision already because there were some flaws in the concept originally, or in the overview originally. But since then, we haven't made adjustment. Yeah, we could at any time because this is supposed to evolve further the more insight we get over the course of the years and decades ahead. Yeah. Okay. So if you don't mind, I would like to tell you a little bit about the history, past, present, and future of self-structure design. By the way, I missed one thing, that is a few words about the relationship between self-structure design and Agile and Lean and other stuff. Okay. Here's the thing. Yeah, good. We think, this is an opinion, okay? Let me say an opinion, just very briefly. It's nothing fancy. We think Agile and Lean are a little bit incomplete in a way, all right? In Agile, this is especially critical or visible right now. If you take especially if you look into specific Agile concepts such as Scrum. Scrum is wonderful on the team level, or pretty great, at least, as many people would agree. But it is a concept for the team level, for the individual software development team originally, right? And of course, you can use this for other kind of work, not just software development. Not for all kinds of work, I would argue, but for several kinds of work, right? So Scrum, etc. You could say the same about Kanban, etc. Those concepts are great, but they do not explain how exactly a whole organization can be structured like a Scrum team in a similar, consistent fashion, which is why I would argue that usually when you do Scrum, it helps the team, but there are all kinds of frictions that will evolve, and we don't have to agree on this, of course, and those problems will then lead to using stuff like agile scaling frameworks and other stuff, which I think is totally dysfunctional and wrong. Yeah. But why is that needed? Because if you want to do agile, you will think about, okay, beyond the team level, how does this fit? How does Scrum, etc., yeah, team-based agility, how does that fit into, how does that make an agile organization? One of the answers we believe is in self-structure design. It explains perfectly well how to not just build an agile team, but how to build an agile organization, like the overview that you see here, right? Where one of these little cells would be a team, and that could use Scrum or Kanban, but you need a solution for the whole organization, how to organize like that. Role-based, not hierarchy-based, creating flow of value. Also, something that's missing in Scrum, this is just to illustrate. This is not to criticize Scrum, which is in a way great, yeah, perfect. But there's some blind spots in it. For example, in the Scrum guide, you will find nothing about financial self-organization or a team, how a team might control its finances or justify its prices or gets to pricing or relationship with other cells or external clients, right? All that is missing in Scrum and other agile concepts. So in a way, my point, but we don't have to agree, right? This is a little bit to contextualize for you. In a way, we argue that if you want to make Scrum, etc., and agility and lean and other concepts like this really, really happen, you have to connect it or combine it with something like self-structure or with self-structure design, because this gives you a framework, a solution, a set of principles or a philosophy of how to make this happen. So if you look, you could, for example, analyze the Scrum guy and see, does this fit with the 12 principles of self-structure and how to make that fit? And that would probably lead you to excellent solutions about the matter of how should Scrum Masters work, how should product owners work, and how not. Yeah, well, how to connect cells, how to connect many teams of software development or not software development, etc., etc. Yeah, how to create healthy organizational structure around Scrum teams. In a way. So we believe that self-structure design. We know actually for a fact that self-structure design complements agile methodologies or approaches and approaches like Lean. Lean usually, as most people understand it, does not address all the organizational matters, like, for example, compensation, which is here in the 12 principles of the Beta Codex. You will find compensation, how to pay people. You will find principles and concepts here in principle number 7, conditional income, participation, not incentives. Something that the Scrum guide cannot give you, doesn't give you. So this is a nice addition. Again, I'm not criticizing Scrum here. I'm advocating to unite agile concepts and self-structure design, and for example, relative targets as well. Look at it. It's not the topic of our info hour here today, but look at relative targets as well. It tells you how to design performance management systems or performance systems for agile organizations. Yeah. So this is what we believe is the relationship, or should be the relationship, between self-structure design and agile, lean, teal, and other stuff that's out there. We should combine these things. We should seek unity, not uniformity, or not silly solutions. Yeah. Okay. Where does this come from? Let me talk about this briefly. Is that okay? Yeah. Just to give you a little bit of background. Where does this come from? Did we invent it? Because the creators of self-structure design, not sure if you noticed, Niels Pflaeging and Silke Hermann, so myself and my partner at Red 42. Did we invent self-structure design? Yes and no. Yeah, we invented it as a social technology, that's for sure. So we formed and conceived it as a coherent whole that has a concept overview that is coherent. We have worked with this for 20 years or 15 years respectively. Have been working with self-structure design, the previous incarnations of it, for 20 years. And Silke and I, we are doing this as well. So we continue to research and continue to publish and continue to share what's important about cell structure design. But of course, we did not invent all the elements of cell structure, not at all, right? Most of the elements came from other sources. For example, from the work of the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. I was part of that consortium or think tank during 2003 to 2007-8. Yeah, so for 5 years, I was a director of the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. And at the time, the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable created this concept beyond budgeting, which also included notions of decentralization, how to structure an organization in a decentralized fashion. We came up with the idea of cells at the time, not with everything that now we call cell structure design, but with many of the aspects and elements we came up with this during the time at the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. And how did the Beyond Budgeting model come about? It came from case study research, from case studies like Handelsbanken, W.L. Gore, Toyota that we looked at, and that shared these principles, these concepts of decentralization, of cell structure, of relationships between the cells and so on, of relative measures, no budgeting, no incentives, not many hierarchical layers, minimum of hierarchical layers just for compliance reasons and so on. Yeah. So I should highlight from the Beyond Budgeting team, I should highlight Robin Fraser, my former mentor, who I think was the first to recognize the importance of decentralization within the Beyond Budgeting movement. And Robin Fraser and I, we advocated this concept of decentralization. And then we split in the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. I created the Beta Codex network to continue this work and to focus on transformation as well. But there were other pioneers even prior, of course, prior to the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable. Those pioneers include Douglas McGregor, you might have heard of him, famous for Theory X, Theory Y. There are plenty of Edwards Deming, W. Edwards Deming, quality management guru, so to speak, might be cited. Even Mary Parker Follett, of course, might be named 100 years back. She published around leadership and decentralization. There are also plenty of company cases that have practiced cell structure design, and they really showed us how to do things in practice. And one of the greatest cases, of course, is Handelsbanken. Another great case from Germany is DM Drogeriemarkt. Bozorg in the Netherlands, or from the Netherlands, is a great case. Morningstar from the United States. Toyota is a wonderful case. So there are all these cases that I have talked about for 20 years. You might have heard about them. Southwest Airlines, of course, is another case. AES. Yeah. So there are cases, there are thinkers like Douglas McGregor, Edward Deming, Mary Parker Follett, and others. There are thinkers, there are cases, and there were successive movements like socio-technical systems research in the 1960s, 70s, which all added to the insights that we use and applied and synthesized in cell structure design. Other theories I might mention that contributed to cell structure design were systems theory, especially the Niklas Luhmann School of Systems Theory. Niklas Luhmann, German professor of sociology at the University of Bielefeld. He kind of bestowed the concept, the distinction between periphery and center upon us. Some of the concepts were added by a former colleague of mine, Gebhard Borg. For example, better visualization of the model of the concept. Gebhard Borg influenced that. And Silke Hermann, of course, who I work with intensely, she added many other concepts, like we added org physics and much about the interaction between the cells, the, let's say, realization approach to cell structure design and so forth. Yeah. So a lot has happened in the last 15 years since we founded the Beta Codex, but we did by no means start from scratch. We had all these important influences. Adding org physics in 2011, we wrote white papers in 2012, then the Organize for Complexity book, which you might know. So we created terminology around that time for the model for cell structure design in 2014, 2015. And then in 2019, we published cell structure design as a social technology, open source social technology first. Yeah. And then we created, the open source license, concept overview and posters, the handbook in German, a learning box, so far only in German, visuals and so on. Yeah, we did quite a few implementations of this. Right now I'm doing implementation. The term is wrong, of course. Let's say projects with clients. We have been doing quite a few over the last 20 years, and I'm doing one in Switzerland right now with a company of, let's say, 140 people. So we have been doing self-structure design application with companies in a lot of companies over the last decades. Yeah. And we share the insights, of course, in our publications, in research papers and so on. Yeah. So what's the role of Red 42 in this as we see it? We commercialize materials like the poster, the handbook. We do certifications, so you can make use of that. So you don't have to develop everything from scratch, right? That's the idea. But you don't have to use our stuff. You can also create your own. You can write your own books, create your own booklets or whatever you think is necessary, and work materials and so on. Yeah, and of course anybody can use this commercially as well, as I said before. Yeah, but of course we have a knowledge advantage probably compared to most, and so everybody is free to make use of our knowledge and collaborate with us, get qualified even if they want, share with us what they know and understand and so on. And, we believe that there is power in community and not in selfish solitude. All right. So, yeah, what does this amount to? You can collaborate with us. You can create your own products and services around this. You can collaborate with us. You can get help from us, of course, with self-structure design if you want. And we are happy to collaborate with colleagues internationally on this, and also on translations, for example, of the handbook or the materials into other languages. Now, let me dedicate a few words to applicability, and then we can get to the question and answers part. Where does self-structure design apply, you might ask? Yeah. So if we look at the concept overview, where can this be used? Yeah, this thing here, where can this be used? And now of course, we have thought this through upside down. Where can this be applied? What are the limits of use? And we came up with the following definition, let's say. We believe that this can be used in every organization, everywhere. However, self-structure design gets most interesting when a company, an organization has more than, let's say, 15, 20, 30 people. Then it gets much juicier, much more interesting. Why? Because it's a very small organization with 5 people, 7 people, 10 people. It doesn't even have to have cells, right? It is a one-cell organization still. So if you have less than 10 people, you get not that much from this concept, yeah? But if you have, let's say, 30 people or more, then this gets really interesting, yeah? Because then, in a 30 people organization, you should already have 5 cells or so. As cells should have limited size, limited amount of team members, let's say 6 people or something like that, 5, 6, 7 people. If you have an organization of 100 people, you probably already have departments, and instead you should have periphery and center, cells in the periphery, cells in the center, and the periphery being in charge. So the bigger the organization, the more interesting this gets. And the very interesting stage starts at, let's say, 25, 30 people. All right? This is not exact science. This is a recommendation, where does this self-structure design apply most? To organizations that are larger than 20, 30 people. Yeah. Good. Can it be done in organizations with just 10 people? Yes. It's only that you will not have that much. It will not feel as different with self-structure design as without. That's the point. All right. But the philosophy, of course, should apply everywhere, because ultimately you want self-organization, decentralization in every organization, in any kind of work. Can this be done in a hospital, in public services, in schools, in industry, in banking? Yes, everywhere. Yeah. Show me a company. Nobody has ever been able to show me a company where self-structure design wouldn't create significant advantages. Because why is that? Because functional division, centralization, centralized steering and command and control simply doesn't work. It doesn't work anywhere. So you might argue, in an industrial firm, this is even better than in public administration. vice versa. That's okay, you might do that, but this certainly is much, much better than having a functionally divided, centralized, steered, intransparent command and control organization. Why? Because decentralization, small and functionally integrated teams with high levels of autonomy, an absence of steering, that is simply more, it adheres more to human nature, and it works. It's a better fit with today's levels of complexity. So that's the idea. Works everywhere, but it's especially interesting for companies or organizations that are bigger than 20, 30 people. Any kind of industry, any kind of country culture, it works. Of course, we have seen examples from Japan, Korea, Brazil, or everywhere, Europe, United States. So there are cases, company cases, pretty much everywhere. This is not culturally dependent or something like that. Yeah? It works everywhere, and it works in organizations of all kinds, types, shapes, or histories, or age. So yeah, this is what I might share to begin with. And let me see if I missed something. Yeah, this is the opposite of functional division. It's the opposite of matrix structures. Self-structured design is the opposite of agile scaling. It is the opposite of concepts like business areas, departments, shared services, profit centers. It's really the opposite, because it relies on very small, compact, functionally integrated business cells that run the business, and with the center supporting the periphery so that the periphery can serve the external client. Very simple, seems very simple, but all these principles are needed to make it happen. Yeah. Okay. Questions, if you like, fire away.
To ask about paths
Pablo.
to reach the self-structured design, like what happens before, like when this is designed with this in mind, what happens to an organization, like effects.
Can you repeat? I didn't quite capture the first part. Maybe I wasn't paying attention well enough. What do you mean? What happens when? You can repeat it in audio better.
Yeah. So how to reach this? That's the first question. How to get to this place?
Okay.
To this design.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one. And the other one is once we have done that work, what's the impact on the organization, let's say?
Yeah, how to get there and what's the impact? What's the benefit? Maybe we should start with the second. What's the impact? What's the benefit? You usually a company, most organizations, like 96% of organizations, this is an estimate, an axiom. Let's say 96% of organizations are pyramid, command and control, functionally divided, lots of steering from the top, centralized planning, fixed targets, departmental structures and silo thinking, not much entrepreneurial thinking, very slow, very bureaucratic, lots of rules, crippling bureaucracy and steering and so on. So what's the advantage of having a self-structured design organization? The advantage is that you mobilize people to think for themselves, to run the business for themselves. The core idea of self-structured design, and the Beta Codex as well, is decentralization. So if you look at this design here, you see this looks a little bit like a flat peach or something, yeah? With a pit in the center and the flesh around it. Which part should be in charge? The answer is simple. Because of today's market complexity, the periphery needs to be in charge. The market steers the periphery, and the periphery has to steer the center. It cannot be the other way around, because centralized steering and markets, the power of today's markets would create a fuck up, a major fuck up, yeah? So how to avoid the fuck up? Through decentralization. That's the fundamental insight behind Beta Codex, behind also those great company cases like Toyota, Handelsbanken, DM Drogeriemarkt, Burzorg, etc. So self-structured design helps to decentralize decision-making to teams in the periphery so that these teams can run the business. Every periphery cell will own their own clients, own their own profit and loss statement, have their own, financial results, They will own the money even in self-structured design. Yeah. So how is that beneficial? That was your second question, but we have to address it first. Yeah. So why is that better? It's better because then people take care of the clients and the business, and managers can, you need less managers in a self-structured design. They can focus on the future and this stuff. Every cell will focus on the future as well, but managers can mainly build the future or prepare the organization for the future. And instead of dabbling with the business, instead of micromanaging everyone. An organization like this in self-structured design or in an organization like this, all teams will self-organize, self-manage, run the business for themselves, and don't require steering, with higher levels of responsibility, higher levels of transparency. Look at Toyota compared to, let's say, Volkswagen, other car companies, you see the difference. Look at Southwest Airlines compared to Delta or United in the United States, or other beta companies like Burzog, a healthcare company, to begin with, at least, compared with others. It's just an incredible difference in terms of performance and competitive superior performance. Right. So that's the benefit. Make organizations more agile, more complexity robust, as we like to call it, more high performing. That's the benefit. How to achieve this? Okay, and here we go to the recommendations. Thank you for asking this, because it's a great question. How to get there? And here we give a little bit of recommendations. We give recommendations about what's a good process for this. And these are our recommendations. And one thing that's mentioned here somewhere, the best approach, this is recommendation number 3. Do a highly inviting workshop sequence to develop the draft design. A great number of people should be involved. And it says here, e.g., for example, as part of an open space beta chapter. So one of our recommendations is, if your company is bigger, more than 50 people, 60 people, you should use another complementary fitting social technology that we call open space beta, which is for transformation in just 90 days. All right. I can go to that page just to show you briefly what that is. I will go up here. It's on the same website. It's another social technology that we developed and published in 2018. So you might take a look at this. Open space beta, that's a way. It's also an open source social technology, just like self-structured design. Here's the concept overview for this open space beta stuff. And this is a way of transforming any organization in 90 days. Take a look. This is the best, fastest way to get a self-structured design done. Like these are all like siblings, right? Open space beta, self-structured design, relative targets. Yeah, so what is the best way to get to self-structured design? In short, it's to do it fast. For example, now, currently, I'm doing this with a client in 2.5 months. The go live will be on the 1st of October. So they are doing the cell constitutions right now. This is also mentioned on the concept overview. Yeah? They did the design in July. Basically, they did the self-structured design draft overview design in August. This month, they are doing the cells constitutes themselves. And the go live is on 8 October. The whole thing takes more or less 2.5 months, no more. Yeah? Which means how many days? 75 days approximately. It shouldn't take longer. Yeah? If it's a large organization, you should always use open space beta, as I just mentioned. So take a look at that if you like. Yeah, it's very helpful. I cannot explain all the concepts here right now, but the core of it is that to get to a draft design, a good enough. Let me go back to the other page here. To get to a good enough rough self-structured design, a company doesn't need more than a month. Yeah, not more than a month. Can be done in 20 days to 45 days. That's the maximum it should take. Yeah, but usually it takes a month. And for that, you need a certain amount of people participating in this design phase, and you need that workshop sequence here that I mentioned in recommendation number 3, if you look at it. Yeah. And then follows what we call cell constitutions, cells set themselves up, and so on. So these 8 recommendations, they are really a description of how to proceed, how to do it. Yeah. Pablo, other questions that you might have? You're good? Walter?
Yes,
Walter?
please. I do have a question. Let me
Yeah.
put on my video.
No problem.
So,
yeah.
so we are visible to each other.
Yes.
I like the idea of getting your organization structured from the market to the periphery to the central system. It's a bottom-up. It's really from the field into the internals of the system. It's also like a normal body of interoception, which is primary sentiment you need into it. Now, this bottom-up approach, did you use it also to design the self-structured design framework, or is this a top-down design of the framework?
Yes. I used to use this wording, bottom-up and top-down as well. But I stopped using it, and I will explain. I will not, of course, oblige you to stop using it, but we stopped using it for the reason that this is not really bottom-up. In order to, it's a brilliant question, but I love the question. Yeah, it's a great way also to talk about something very important in this concept of organizational design, which is our mental models, the language we use, the expressions, the words. Yeah? And if you say bottom-up, top-down, it implies this kind of relationship, and self-structured design is exactly the opposite. It's outside in, except of bottom-up and top-down. Let me put it like this, and this is just to make this interesting, this session a little bit interesting for you guys. Yeah? Bottom-up and top-down is still the same philosophy of authoritarianism. Yeah, you have to turn it into outside in, inside out to be client and market related. So we do not use bottom-up as a term. What we say, but that's the other question that you asked about. How do you make this change process happen? Right? Is this bottom-up or top-down, or what is it? And we like to say you need authorization. As a consultant, I need an authorization, and everybody who works on this needs authorization, and that authorization must be firm. That's why in Open Space Beta, we have a sponsor, and if you want to make self-structured, I'm doing this right now in Switzerland with a company, I mentioned that. The first thing I had to get is authorization from the bosses. They have 2 guys heading the company, and they had to authorize the process. Otherwise, this would collapse after a while. Yeah, I personally suggest not to use metaphors like grassroots for this, because grass, it grows until somebody cuts it from the top. You know, somebody who has a lawnmower cuts it.
Yeah.
So you need authority, but the authority doesn't do the job. Let's put it like this. My clients here at the top, they are the owners or the founders, let's say, yeah, but they do not do the work. They authorize it, and then they become part of the people who do this. That's it. So, but this question is very to the point. It relates to the question, how much power do you need? How do you do this? And our basic approach is always to do it with all the willing, all at the same time. No breaking down, rolling out, no implementation, no piloting, no forcing through or driving into the organization. No. There's an authorization first, and then the willing people who want to develop this together, do it openly, you know, and then it's fast, because then everybody can apply self-structure at the same time. It's a great question. I'm not really able to answer it all in this session.
No.
I hope it clarifies.
But I would to clarify a little bit more the question. I used bottom-up, top-down from an information perspective. So bottom-up is starting from the data and not from the mental model. And top-down is starting from the mental model and in building the perception and the observation afterwards, which is more and more coming into the science itself. So, and the question was, how did you build your self-structured design itself, your framework? Is this, you mentioned you used system thinking and so on. You also have some design thinking, your agile is in it also a little bit. So, how did you build it? Is it from experience in the field? Is it from sample customers? Is it the experience which guided you, or is it more conceptual.
Two main sources. Great question as well. Two main sources: theory and cases.
Mhm.
And then doing it and failing
Yeah.
with ways of implementing. For a long time, we failed a lot. Yeah, but the theory comes from people like Niklas Luhmann, systems theory, or Edward Deming. Maybe you're not sure if you have heard, but I recently published a book with quotes by Edward Deming, because I think everything is there. Or Peter Drucker is another influence, yeah. Or Mary Parker Follett, even Henry Mintzberg, for example, or people like Douglas McGregor, of course, right? So there's so many, or Russell Eckhoff, yeah. So there are many theorists, or let's say what we call the Follettian school of organizing. We wrote a white paper on this, which is called The Invention of Managements. The invention of managements. Very interesting. If you want to see what the sources are, the influences are, they are all there. So theory concepts from systems theory, sociology, psychology, of course, organizational sciences, management, insights, and so on. So all these concepts went into that, including movements like socio-technical systems, which has been a very strong movement, led by the Tavistock Institute and so on. Socio-technical systems. Russell Eckhoff was part of this. Eric Trist. Douglas McGregor was also part of this in a way. So, and then beyond budgeting, so there was intense theorization, theory work. And then cases, very importantly. So in the beyond, especially in the beyond budgeting work, we were looking for companies that already did this kind of thing to understand how they did it. And then we compared it with theory. We kind of tried to mesh the cases with theory and looked, have we really understood this? Are we talking about the right things? And at the beginning, we weren't talking about the right things. We had to understand that this was not about performance management, the model we found in the cases. It was not about performance management so much. It was way more about decentralization, structuring, power, hierarchy, and so on, getting rid of steering. Yeah. So cases like Handelsbank and Southwest Airlines, DM Drogeriemarkt, etc., W. Gore, etc., etc., and the theory. And then we started doing. I, for example, started doing this in 2006, in 2003, really, with clients. But the approach became better and better and better. And finally, with Open Space Beta, only 5 years ago, we figured out a way to really do this fast and reliably and robustly. So take a look at Open Space Beta, if you like. Yeah. All these things came together through theory, cases, and doing and reflecting in the light of all of this, the theory and the case. Because I think research must work like this. You must also do consulting work to understand how this plays out. For example, one thing that we learned, this is such a great question, I have to talk. Just another second. When we started doing this with clients in our consulting work, we figured out that there was a learning problem. We couldn't accelerate the learning at the beginning. For 10, 15 years or so, we had all kinds of trouble getting companies to do this kind of transformation because we couldn't accelerate the learning. So then we used time boxing, using open space early on and 90 days later. And then we also figured that, how do you teach people how this works? So we wrote the books, we conceived even a learning platform that we call Coherent. So the transformation approach is important, not just this structural approach, self-structure design, you need an implementation approach, and you need an approach to learning and didactics, so to speak. Yeah. So if you want to do this with 10,000 people in just a few months, you need to accelerate the learning. Yeah. Yep. And these things, it took us a long time to figure this out, if I may. But I've done a lot of talking and speaking and publishing about this. So if you like, after this session, you can also ask me about these things. Yeah. If you're interested in more detail. That was such a wonderful question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments that you want to make? Pablo, you also.
Fine for me.
Are you good?
Yes.
This was a very small session, but wonderful. Thank you for joining. Yeah. As I said, stay in touch, keep in touch if you like. Yeah. The Beta Codex community is an open community. The Beta Codex is open source as well. So we want to have a movement. So if you feel connected, please stay connected. Be part of this. Yeah. Stay in touch. Also, you can always reach me. Send me an email or ask me on LinkedIn or whatever for information sources, more stuff to look at if you like. I will be launching a different way of talking about self-structure design, doing an info hour on self-structure design in the future. So please join again if you like. Yeah. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.